Hello and welcome to an all new episode of Pilot Season. This is episode number 6. I am your host, Kente, all the way live from Los Angeles, California, and I'm joined by my wonderful co host. I'm going to start off with Tori. How you doing, Tori? Who gets all the.
I'm good.
All right.
Yay. I love David Lynch. So this was super awesome to watch.
All right. Tori, who gets all the glory.
Yes.
All right. And then we have Renee, who's always doing A-OK.
Thanks. Yeah, I can say, well, for this one, I remember watching Twin Peaks, but I didn't remember the pilot at all. So I guess I'm the Twin Peaks version.
All right. And we have Jen, who
Don't you
always
dare call me
wins.
a hen. Don't you call
No,
me a hen.
Jen, who always wins.
I like Renee. Even though I love this show, I'm a huge fan. I forgot a whole bunch of stuff. So
Mhm.
rewatching it actually opened my eyes to a bunch of things. I am so glad we're doing this show. I love
Yeah,
it.
me too.
Yes, yes, yes. And last but not least, Olaf, who always reaches his goals off.
Oh my God.
Oh, that was bad.
Mm-mm-mm.
You got to work on your rhyming skills there, brother.
Well,
Uh,
if you had a name that was easier to rhyme.
we'll just use Captain instead of Olaf. It's like, I don't know. Well, I'm going to take the title of Twin Peaks version from Renee because I don't remember ever really watching
Mm.
the series or anything like that. So I'll go with watch that, and that's it. I'm gonna be the Twin Peaks virgin.
All right, Virgin. Ding, 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 Virgin, Virgin, Virgin. All right, so Twin Peaks, one of my favorite shows of all time, created by Mark Frost, David Lynch. This show, for a lot of reasons, is like the big change in television
Mm.
came because of Twin Peaks. You can actually see like the the big shift in television, and it was because of the show Twin Peaks. Before, really before this show, there was that debuted in 1990, by the way. Um, there was TV, and there were movies, and it was a huge difference. I mean, it's still a difference, but 1990. Okay. Sorry about that. Just making sure I have it. So it was definitely a big difference in television before and after Twin Peaks. And oddly enough, I would probably say the direct descendant of Twin Peaks we're gonna review next week, which is the X Files,
Yeah.
which was like the next evolution in television. And in a lot of ways, even though they weren't connected as far as besides David Duchovny, um, who's the star of the X Files, did have a small part in Twin Peaks, but definitely you can see a line going through there. So let me pull up. Hold on a second. You would think I would have done it before we started. Pull up some information. So, like I said, Twin Peaks is a 1 hour drama. It was on ABC, and it ran for 48 episodes. Oh, including season 3, which was they did a revival. The original run though was 30 episodes, and um, it ran from April 8th, 1990, all the way to June 10th, 1991. So, for a show that had such a big impact, it really had a short run, and it was a meteoric run as well. The show Twin Peaks. So, Twin Peaks. I guess we should get into is essentially what the show is about. Twin Peaks is the show that follows the investigation, the murder investigation of the homecoming queen of a small town, Twin Peaks. Laura Palmer, at the very beginning, of the series is found wrapped in plastic on the shores in front of the Packard Mill, and this kicks off a string of events. And Agent Dale Cooper, played by Kyle MacLachlan, is sent in from the FBI to take over as the lead investigator. And what you find in Twin Peaks, yes, the main story is trying to find out who murdered Laura Palmer, but you find out that this small Americana town has a lot of demons. There's a lot of people sleeping with somebody's wife, somebody's husband. There's drug deals. There's prostitution. There's this whole underbelly in the town of Twin Peaks, which, from an outsider, you may think is this you know this picturesque town. So let's go over who stars in this series. Of course, I said Kyle MacLachlan is a star. Sheryl Lee who plays the dead body. Laura Palmer, who does play another character in going forward, plays the twin cousin of Laura Palmer. Identical cousin. Matchek Amick is in this. Dana Ashbrook, Lara Flynn Boyle, and more. Joan Chen, who had a big career, is the opening shot too. You see her on in the series. So I think a good thing to start off with. We'll start off with you, Jen. Uh, David Lynch, who at this point, did the Elephant Man, Eraserhead. I believe he did Blue Velvet already by this point. Um, he's a what they call an auteur director, and for a guy of his ilk to go to television in the late '80s, which were really it debuted in 1990, was a huge deal. And initially, Twin Peaks was supposed to be a movie,
Mhm.
and so this pilot was a movie, and but it became a series. So I want I want you to Jen to kind of give the audience a little bit on your own take on David Lynch, the creative force.
Um, boy, that's a pretty big order, but I think maybe in this context, I think what she said was actually pretty spot on. David Lynch, first of all, I think in order to understand this, which maybe there is a little bit of context necessary if you don't know it, back in the early 90s, and even up to really 2000 or so, it was sort of inconceivable that you would move from building movies, from directing big budget movies to moving into television, because it was seen as kind of a step backwards. Like there was more prestige to building movies, directing movies, producing movies than there was in having anything to do with television, which was seen as a little bit more of a um, what's a good word for that? It was more constrictive, right? We didn't have prestige television at the time. It didn't exist. And so the stuff that was on was a little bit more procedural, a little bit more rote in its sort of every episode has kind of its own repetitive motion. So first act, second act, third act will roughly follow the same kind of train. And David Lynch really upended that with Twin Peaks. First of all, every episode feels very much like it belongs in a museum. It is just so breathtakingly art directed. And I mean, obviously, that is very intentional, but it also lends itself to the kind of accolades that it got, which are that it feels like it's Hitchcock, that it feels like like it's important, not just for the story. The story is good, and in the pilot episode, we get to see a lot of the beginning story unfold. But more than that, I think that David Lynch set up a kind of expectation with this first episode that is exceptional, because number one, it really hadn't been done before, and number two, this is the kind of experience that people had when they went to see a movie in the theater, not just sitting for an hour at home watching TV. Um, because one of the things that I could say about David Lynch that is, um, this no one will ever be able to figure out David Lynch, right? I mean, inside of his brain are just things that I feel like are random tangents of stuff. But if there was one work that kind of is the David Lynch, it is Twin Peaks. This is quintessential David Lynch.
Mhm.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so that was very well said, by the way. All right, so let's kind of get into the overall plot line, which I kind of laid out for it is we have the death of Laura Palmer, and I think one thing that this show does that is excellent in this pilot is it really shows how the death of a in a small town of someone that everybody knew and had a connection with can really affect the town, and not just in tech, and the psyche of the town, and you really see that in the very beginning of the series. You see how the students reacted, and even the principal is in tears and whatnot. I'm gonna go to you, Renee. What did you think about how just the way the town reacted when they found out about Laura Palmer? That, oh, you're on mute, Renee. You're
I was
on
gonna
mute.
thank you. I was gonna say, watching the show before but not remembering anything. And I kept saying, this town must be smaller than I guess I thought it was, but because everybody was so distraught, not knowing what happened, they just knew something happened, and they hadn't even really heard she was dead. It was just, I guess you kind of assumed that's what happened to her. So it was interesting how they showed, I guess, the best friend and the boyfriends and whoever else, their reaction as the show went on. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That was really good. What about you, Tori?
I really liked hmm, how they did the different camera angles, because
Mm.
before, like, television, like, didn't really have like the I guess it's this artistic side that Jen was saying, like his camera angles and how he saw the murder. I don't think any show before that, like, covered like the actual murder, like from the beginning to the interrogations and all that stuff. Like, it was the first of its kind, and I think that David Lynch himself is he this was his baby. I think
Mm.
this was his nest egg. Like, he really took this out under his wing. Not that he didn't do it with his other works, but this was his, like, his uh his his precious, if you want to say that.
Uh, that's funny because Jen would appreciate that reference.
Oh, for sure. I definitely do.
I love Lord of the
Yeah,
Rings.
it was
So.
pretty good.
Yeah. And Olaf, you saw the beginning when they found the body and whatnot.
Right. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
like that.
So and you're in a small town, so I don't know, you might be able to relate to a certain degree about how something like that can
Mm.
affect a small town.
Right. Well, yeah, like I said, in the beginning, like I said, the guy's getting ready to go out, he's getting ready to go out and go fishing, and all of a sudden
Mhm.
he sees something laying there, and come find out, like I said, it's the homecoming queen, and
Mhm.
the guy comes out to take the pictures, and he can't do it.
Can't get through
He
it.
Uh,
can't get through it, and
Yeah.
then that's like then
Yeah.
they're taking the pictures, and then roll her over, and then it's like kind of like in the it's like in the back of my mind when they rolled her over and pulled the plastic back. You got that dunk dunk dunk,
Mhm.
Yes.
because they're like going, oh, it's homecoming queen. Ah. Yeah. So it started out good, and like Tori was mentioning about the different camera angles, and you had said that it started out to be a movie, and they turned it into a TV series. Is that right?
Yeah, it was
Hmm.
something to that effect that they
Well,
yeah.
that would explain the different camera angles because it was being started to be shot as a movie
Ah.
instead of being a TV series.
Mm.
I'm going to interject just a little, and I'm sure nobody even asked me for this question, but I'm going to answer it anyway. So, one of the things that I think about Twin Peaks that was unique and ingenious was the use of camera angles and
Hmm.
the ability for David Lynch to see subject matter outside of the normal rule of basic TV aspect ratio, right? Because on a small screen, you actually have a different aspect ratio than you do on a big screen. And so camera angles matter because when you want your subject matter to line up inside of that golden piece, the golden sort of center, but off center, what you're looking for is something a bit different on the big screen than you are on a small screen. But what David Lynch was able to do was capture the big screen feeling by using separate camera angles on the small screen. So
Mm.
television became this immersive experience during Twin Peaks, which we really hadn't had before. And that was all due to some really excellent direction and kind of technical genius behind the scenes. So I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to throw that out there because I feel
No,
like as we talk
Hmm.
about that, that's super important.
that's a good interjection. Yeah,
Yeah,
good to know. Yeah,
no, yeah, no, it's very, very
good
well
to know.
said. And one thing that I always talk about is the this notion of iconic imagery, and I think the best works have iconic imagery, and this image right here
Hmm.
is so iconic to this show, and it really speaks to what you're going to get in this this program. Even though there is something, I don't know that a body would look like that. I think I'm getting feedback from somebody. Oh, it's you, Renee. Um, uh, Even though I don't know if this was how a body would look wrapped in plastic, but there's something where it looks angelic. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
something about this image that I remember seeing it as a young person when this came out in 1990. So I was really young. I was like maybe 13, 14 or something to that effect. And I remember like just this piercing into my head, this of this, wrapped in plastic. And then uh, Martell says, she's dead. She's wrapped in plastic, which really doesn't make sense that you would call the police and just say that. But, but I think that I don't think it was meant to be realistic because if I remember correctly, David Lynch said one time that it's more important. No, okay, I'm sorry. It was he was quoting um, Stanley Kubrick, who said it's more important to be interesting than factually accurate. you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so so
now
and he's cut from that same cloth.
when you showed that picture, that's the other thing that I kind of noticed is like on that doesn't look like a real dead body. I mean, that doesn't no you're a dead body that's been in the water doesn't look like that, and
Yeah.
it
So
looked like she
pretty.
was, yeah, it looked like she just kind of was asleep.
Just went to sleep.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
But the pilot, actually, this is one of the things that as we get into this is so interesting. That first of all, she is beautiful death, right?
mm,
And I think that in especially in the pilot, that is important for us to remember because she isn't just any person in town. And I'm not saying that like, she's the mayor. I'm saying that the irreverence with which she was treated as this beautiful prom queen was heinous enough for everyone to have a reaction to it. And that also is one of those sort of subtle nuance things that David Lynch does, where every scene, every shot always has some kind of extrapolated meaning, which I love.
Yes. And Renee, just unmute when you talk and just mute when you until we figure it out. All right. So that was definitely something that I wanted to get into is that image. And if you notice, there's there's something that's slightly off about the town, right? People act
Yeah,
in a funny way. They speak in a funny way,
They
and
do.
right. So and there's so many great characters that populate this series. And I'm not gonna do like we did on our last episode because there's just too many characters to go through. But you know, we'll just kind of run through some of the things that we see in there. Um, now, uh, when you dealing with the death of a child, right? Because she was 17 years old, she's almost an adult. Um, there's a lot there, right?
Right.
Yep.
And then you find out that this prom queen wasn't, you know, that she had her demons as well, right?
right.
And you know, so now you're dealing with something on like a whole other level of you know, I don't want to. Oh, by the way, I'm not gonna spoil anything. So if anybody's watching and they're wondering, you know, like, oh, I hope they're not gonna say who killed Laura Palmer. We're not gonna get into that. Um, and so we're not gonna spoil it. We're just gonna focus on the pilot and just talk about a little bit about you know the show going forward. And but you know this, but she did have a very troubled life, and this show really does a great job of uncovering her troubled life. And so let's kind of get into some of the characters. Uh, First, we have Agent Dale Cooper, who let me see if I can find. Even though he doesn't start out on the show until a little bit later into the show. There we go. Oh, perfect, perfect image right there. Agent Dale Cooper, who is such an interesting character because he almost comes off like Gilligan in a way, right? You know, he comes off
Mhm.
maybe as a goofball, but then you find out no, he's very capable.
Yep.
You know, he's definitely uh, he's very intelligent,
Yeah,
but then he doesn't let. One thing that's great about his character, he's seen some of the worst things possible, but he still is like a nice person. You know what I'm saying? He still tries to look on the bright side of things. He smells the trees, which I think is awesome. The whole thing about him, and he's obsessed with what kind of trees that are surrounding the Douglas firs.
Right.
And I want to go to you, Tori. Some of those ticks about him, the coffee and the trees
yes.
and the pie and all of that kind of stuff. Can you talk to how you see that those things are intentional about you know his kind of mindset and stuff like that?
Well, I think that he pays attention to detail not only in life, but especially at his job. He needs to pay attention to detail. He's tracking killers, you know, like he has to figure them out. And so I think that they did a really good job of like showing that telling without saying, oh, he's really good at his job. Like they did a good job of like having the you know what I'm trying to say.
Right. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I think that him being a little bit of a goofball too, a little bit off putting, makes you like him, even though you shouldn't because you know he's the FBI agent and like most law enforcement agencies, the city doesn't like it when the FBI agents come in because they take over the case and whatnot. So it's pretty cool too that he has the sheriff come with him wherever he goes.
Right. And even though it's 1990s when the show premiered, Jen, doesn't it feel like the 50s a little bit in the town
Yeah.
and even Dale Cooper?
Yeah, definitely it does. Also, also just on the idea of time. So I mean, I know roughly where they shot a lot of this, but just that area, it just feels so timeless. Like, yeah, there's lots of it's kind of like there's tons of sort of new quote unquote new things around, but there's something timeless about that era that or that area that just feels like you stepped out of a different era and walked into it. And some of that, I think personally, is Twin Peaks has this kind of grit, like a little bit of graininess to it that makes it feel scuffed and worn, and it's super purposeful. I mean, obviously it's, you know, the colors are kind of muted and it's not vibrant in a lot of ways except for where it really needs to be. And I think that that adds to it. And also it kind of, you're right, it adds to Dale Cooper's sort of um the feeling that he is from a world that is prior to the one that we understand him coming into right now, which is great because I mean, if you actually watch Twin Peaks later, you'll learn a lot about his past and what it really means. In the pilot episode, I think they you're right, they kind of made him look a little bit bumbling at first, but it's really obvious when he is telling the sheriff that the FBI is taking control of the crime scene, or they're taking control of the investigation. It's really obvious by the questions that he asks that he knows what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, yeah, definitely for sure. Renee, let me ask you this question about Dale Cooper. What were some moments that stood out for you with Dale Cooper in this pilot?
Well, I think for me, the thing that I noticed right away was the tape recorder. Because as a writer, if I don't have paper, then I pull my phone out and record everything. So I could relate to him on that part. So I always looked for the tape recorder, and I think that made me kind of remember stuff about the show. But I do like that part that he is detailed and make sure he doesn't miss anything.
Oh yeah, Diane. He's always talking to Diane.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, Diane, thank you.
yeah,
So I did. I appreciate that, especially because of his job, and he has to catch all the details and not miss anything. So
right. And also, we have to point out that as the show goes on, every episode is one day in Twin Peaks. So, and that, I think that was confusing when it aired because people are like, the show's been on for months. Why haven't we got farther? But really, in Showtime, it was only like it was only like a week or two, you know.
hmm.
So,
Right.
so that was like people were like, they should have solved this case already, you know. So,
Well,
and
it's
we'll get.
interesting you say that because it was I can't remember who it was on the show, and I kept saying, "Oh, when they interviewed the boyfriend,"
Mhm.
and I think I said they're just interviewing him now. Wasn't that a long time ago? So it's interesting that you said that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, um, all right. So that Dale Cooper, is a fantastic character, and Kyle MacLachlan, who's played, um, who's played a lot of stuff in a lot of characters in David Lynch stuff. Is sorry, content. I'm sorry, I was trying to pull up something. So yeah. All right. All right. Sorry about that. I was having a little issue there. But yeah, he's a great
Am,
actor.
am I the only person who, when they went to the morgue, am I the only person? And this is backwards, right? Because I'm talking about watching this now because I haven't seen the pilot in a really long time. But after all of the paranormal stuff that I have seen now, am I the only person who, when they went into the morgue and the lights were flickering, thought, "Oh, are they trying to signal something supernatural?" Because
I
because
think they were.
I didn't
seeing
think about
things
that.
now, that's exactly what I thought.
Yeah, I think they were. But it's more of a trope now. So like I think when we see it now, we're like, oh, supernatural,
Right?
But
We
back then,
instantly, right?
it wasn't. Yeah, no, that's a
It was
great.
just creepy back then. Yeah.
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 Definitely.
Right.
Hmm.
Now, Sheryl Finn, who plays Audrey Horne. Okay, first of all, she does something in this episode that should have got her punched in the face.
I agree.
There's
The
one thing.
Well, I mean, well, actually, a couple of things, but the coffee when she put the fork in the coffee cup. I mean, not the fork,
yeah.
the pencil,
Yes.
and then she goes
And
to
pulled it out.
and pulled it out. Oh my god, I would have stabbed her with that. Like, oh my god. I mean, and you really get to see how her character is in this
Yeah.
pilot because she's very mischievous. She is definitely a thorn in her father's side. Uh, you know, and she's played very well. But I think she's an actually a really fantastic character. But yeah, she'll definitely get on your nerves. And it seems like she's what I get from the pilot is she really doesn't have any friends, not even in school. She's kind of a loner in a way, and she just kind of is out there drifting aimlessly. So, what about you, Tori? What did you think of Audrey in this episode?
Well, like when she first stepped out of whatever she was, it was a car, like a town car or a limousine, or I don't know what it was. But she stepped out of it, and the guy closed the door, and she had all her like 1950s garb on. You know, like she could have been in, she could have walked out of like any kind of, she could be going to any high school within the last 50 years because of what she was wearing. It was very timeless, you know? So after that, you kind of see that she's a troublemaker, but like not, she has shenanigans, you know? Like she doesn't really like, it's not necessarily all bad. Like she's not like trying to, you know, stir the pot, if you will. I think she really misses her best friend. I think that really, this really hit home for her. I don't think she's ever been through anything like this. So, yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Jen, Audrey?
So this is the classic too cool for school kind of character, right? She's she's super interesting. But I'm gonna sort of diverge a little bit from Tori. I think of course the events really upset her, but I feel like maybe they upset her because it hits too close to home. Like, hey, if this could happen to
yeah.
her, it could happen to me too, or it could happen to any one of us. And I feel like a lot of Twin Peaks is about this, especially in the pilot, this identification that you make from the self to the town. That is, the things that happen in the town, anything that happens in the town could happen to you. And I always found that so fascinating. I really liked that she, in particular, seemed to embody the idea of a very average teen kind of person, but clearly something bigger happening under the surface.
Yeah, and once again, she has like a '50s type motif about her. You know,
That's definitely the hair. Her
Right.
hair is so cool. I really
And
like
and her shoes are straight out of the 50s too.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yep,
Yeah.
I think you're right.
All right. And what about you, Renee? If she had pulled the coffee trick on you,
Oh, I would have punched her.
Yeah.
And I know I would, like, if she had, because that's the first thing I said when she poked a hole in the cup. I said she better not pull that pencil, and she was like, "What if I pull it out?" or whatever she said. So yeah, and I know I wouldn't have cleaned up the desk first. I would have hit her first or something like that. So it was interesting seeing what the lady did, when she did that. But you can tell she's a troublemaker, but she starts stuff. But I think she does it more for attention. And like you said, she's kind of a loner. So it's just like, I need to do something so people pay attention to me.
yeah, yeah, and also we have the sheriff and Harry S. Truman,
Oh my
who
gosh.
I think he's an awesome character, and he's very understated. He plays it very well, and I love when his deputy is crying at the crime scene,
Yeah.
and he's just like, "Go ahead," you know. He just kind of
Yeah, just
covers
let it
for him.
out.
Yeah, I know he's awesome. Awesome character. So, any thoughts before I move on? What area is Truman? Um,
I like the fact that he is able to, in this episode, in the first pilot, I love the fact that he's able to establish the fact that he is definitely the law, but he is so not willing, but like recognizes that he has to defer to the FBI, and that the dynamic that that sort of creates is so interesting because that's got to be hard for someone who has, I'm the sheriff. These are, this is my flock basically, and then you have to give up stuff to this kind of goofy looking guy, well, goofy acting guy who's talking about the trees and are these Douglas firs. That man, that takes a big man to be able to do that. I tell you.
I
yeah,
think I think also too with him, like he does a good job of like uh he's one with the community. He's not above the law. Sometimes police officers can act like they're above you, like they have some sort of superiority complex. But like he was really down to earth, and he was like, he played poker with these guys. They're friends, and so this hit home for him too.
right, right. And then this character Donna Hayward, played by Lara Flynn Boyle. I believe this is her first job. Uh, Very important character because she kind of connects everything together. Her best friend, um, Laura Palmer's best friend, and really we get to see how tragic it is through not only her Laura Palmer's parents' reaction to the news, but Donna's reaction. Before she's even told that she's dead, she puts two and two together, and that scene is so heartbreaking when you see, you know, her reaction. And she has a very interesting ride throughout this episode. Let's go with you, Renee. What did you think about Donna?
I like how, I guess because they're all in high school, I like how they show their emotions, and it's from their perspective. And that, like you said, she realized something happened to her best friend and it's tragic. And um she just, she yeah, I just like how they show how she immediately loses it, and her relationship with Laura.
Right. And what about you, Jen? Donna?
I, I actually think that this is one of the coolest devices that they use, and especially, well, I guess we get a good feeling for it in the pilot. It's such a slow unraveling, and it kind of almost feels like the conversation that we have, especially with her, is so slowly revealing toward all the little hidden secrets and little things that are happening. Um, One of the things that Twin Peaks does really well, and this character reminds me of that, is there is this idea that they use time and time again, which is kind of like almost like a Hitchcock idea, where when you think you know the truth, dig deeper. And so even when we think we understand what's happening, and I feel like especially in the pilot, because it doesn't I mean, obviously it's set up as a mystery, but I feel like we think we get little clues, and then not that those clues are important that we have.
Oh, you sound underwater.
Oh, sorry.
Uh huh.
Is that
Go ahead.
better?
Yeah, better, much better.
um I was just saying that I feel like we just have to keep digging deeper, and that's one of the things that this particular character does well, is gives us the opportunity to dig deeper.
Mm. All right. And Tori, if you were Donna and you had the chance to go with the high school football player or the motorcycle guy, I'm assuming you probably take the motorcycle guy.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He's so sweet. He's so sweet. And with
Is it?
her though, like I think it's cool that she wants to justify. She wants to find vindication for her friend, like
Mhm.
she's gonna figure it out. She's gonna figure out who killed her. And I think that's what best friends should do, you know? So like I really like that about her. That she was willing to like, you know, maybe break the law to get another clue, you
Yeah.
know?
Right, right. Now, one thing we got to talk about is the score. Uh, the score has just been phenomenal, and definitely was very different than other shows up until that point. And from the main opening theme was awesome, as well as the different themes that you got. And once again, there was a couple of the score sections had once again that 50s feel to it as well with the little jazzy, you know, tune. And I mean, I remember just being obsessed with the score when I was a kid, you know, and it's still great to hear the because I swear like they play the same four things throughout the show, you know, the same pieces of music. But I love it though. It's awesome though, you know. And let's start out. Let's go to you, Jen. How do you feel like the music, the score, impacts the telling, the storytelling?
Well, when it's supposed to be creepy, it's creepy. When it's supposed to be crisp, it's crisp. But you're right. I think that there is a kind of almost, it's close. It's not really there, but there's there are these discordant notes underneath everything, which to me always tell me, hey, something is is not quite right. Like like when you hear music that is either offbeat or is like just off note, which some of this soundtrack feels like it to me it is always saying, hey, pay attention here because something isn't quite right. Like, actually listen or actually watch or whatever. And I feel like Twin Peaks did a really good job of that. Also, the other thing that Twin Peaks did good with is the music always seemed to line up with whatever was happening on the screen. And I'm not saying that like most television doesn't do that sort of just by default, but I feel like a lot of television doesn't handle it as well. Like somebody really walked through frame by frame to make sure that the percussion, well, that percussive pieces and that especially the small sounds matched with whatever was happening on screen. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's a masterful score, and it, like I said, it doesn't
Who
feel dated at all.
who
Yeah,
actually did the sound on this?
Angelo Badalamenti, I think that's how you say his name. So
Okay.
he's
I actually
fantastic.
didn't know that.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He's worked with David Lynch quite a bit. So, and one thing too, David Lynch wrote and created this with Mark Frost, and Mark Frost, who deserves a lot of credit as well, because like I love David Lynch, but David Lynch can be on another planet in his thinking, and I felt like Mark Frost, who was more of a TV guy, you know, done a lot of just regular TV programs. It felt like he kind of kept him closer to Earth than he normally likes to be. You know what I'm saying? So it
Yep.
was a great combo, of the two. It was a great pairing, and also I feel like we need to say that back then, TV show dramas were either lawyer shows, doctor shows, cop shows, or soap operas like Dynasty. Um, what's the other one? Dallas. You know, and so if you like, they made shows fit in those categories. Those are the only ones that they were producing. So this show is very soap opera esque, and part of it was supposed to be like kind of in a way that I remember they talked about. It was kind of supposed to be like kind of a not a spoof of soap operas, but kind of a send up of soap operas because they were kind of forced to make it soap opera like that. But it works though, you know. So, but it's very melodramatic. You know, it has the soap opera moments. You know, and so. But anyway,
Yeah, like whenever he's by his bike and she goes to find him and like she finds him and he's just sitting there and then they kiss and it was like it was like so like over the top. I thought that was like
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, a lot of sex too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and okay, let's talk about this jerk face. There's good old Bobby. Bobby, who is on paper the boyfriend of Laura Palmer, who is like I believe he's the first suspect. He's the first suspect, uh, right? Real jerk. And
Mhm.
bicycle guy James Hurley is the secret boyfriend of Laura Palmer as well. And let's just say in this first episode, they don't give you anything to like Bobby. Bobby
Right.
is a jerk off.
Yes. Big
He's
time.
he's rude. He is, you see kind of a gentle side with because he's sleeping with somebody's wife. And one of the funniest scenes is the wife is married to a truck driver, and he's taking her home, thinking that her truck driver husband is away, on the road. And then when he saw that truck in the driveway, boy, he let her out.
Yeah.
What he
Like,
let her out like?
bye.
He let her out like 3 blocks away, and then he turned and sped away. Boy, he was like he didn't want no parts.
That was so funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was pretty funny. He got the hell. That was the one time you saw genuine fear uh,
Yeah.
in Bobby. And he's really confident guy. So let's start off with you, Renee. What do you think about a good old Bobby?
You're like spot on. He's a jerk. But it's interesting. Like he's mad his girlfriend cheated, but he's cheating and whatever.
Right,
It's like
right.
really,
He's
but
double cheating.
yeah, but it's always like I always these type of I guess scenarios in movies or shows. I always wonder, does the guy react like that if they find out their girlfriend died or was killed? And like when they first told him, he seemed shocked, but didn't have like a lot of emotion. But as it went on, because they were accusing him, he seemed like his emotion came out. But I don't know if that was because he was sad she died, or sad, or he was mad because they were accusing him.
Right, right. He's kind of a strange bird.
Hmm.
What about you, Tori?
I thought it was funny he got locked up in the first episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah, for the fight,
You
right?
couldn't get
yeah,
away.
the fight, and that was an epic fight too. They
Sure
were
was.
really
Yeah, that was
throwing
real.
shit at each other. Like it was great. Like, and he's a quintessential jock. He is a stereotype. He is exactly what they want him to be, and he was very almost uh not abusive, but very abrasive toward, and I could see how he was like his friend towards Laura. You know what I mean? Like kind of like pushing her around and telling her what to do and stuff like that. I think that he's that kind of guy.
Yeah, it's his buddy's even worse than he is, which is hard to
Yeah.
believe that someone can be worse. You really want to see his buddy get thrown down the flight of stairs, but yeah, really jerky guy. What about you, Jen? What's your take on Bobby?
Well, I don't think I can add too much to what everybody's already said. Although I will say that I feel like he was one of the best tropes that they came up with that was like so on the money. I swear every single person that I know knows someone like this. It was just there was something very real about this kind of character, while at the same time being 100% a trope of the jock, the it's not even machismo that he had. It's more than or less than, I should say. It's more like um just sort of that schoolboy jealousy, nastiness, which is so it really that's one of the things that I was going to say that this episode really did is it really made the characters come to life. Like by the time that you see the next episode of Twin Peaks, you know who's who.
Hmm.
There's no ambiguity. You don't feel like, oh yeah, wait, what did this guy do? What was he? You know, you totally know. So
Right, right. And then we have the biker with a heart made of gold. What's your take on James, Jim?
I don't know. I I I feel ambiguous about this character. Um, I'm not really sure what to say about him in particular that I feel like would be helpful. Um, because I don't this is one character that I don't feel like had a gigantic impact in the pilot. Um, I don't know. Yeah, I think I just feel ambiguous isn't the right word. I feel ambivalent. I just feel a little bit ambivalent.
All right, so Tori, as a woman who's dated many bikers,
Uh,
how does he land for you as far as being a biker?
he's too soft to be a biker. Like
Right.
honestly, like
Tori.
he's kind of. I mean, he does be a little tough, you know.
Yeah.
But he
He's very
made
sensitive.
out. He made out with her. Like, why would you do that? Like, I just thought that whole scene was like, what? What brought it on? Like that was the night. That was the timing was so wrong, and like uh he didn't make a big impact, but I do remember at the very end, like whenever they were in the jail and stuff, um Bobby was like looking at him and like he had this look in his eye like I can take both of you, you know, like I thought that was funny.
Yeah. What about you, Renee? What do you think about old James?
I guess he was just more annoying to me because it seemed like they kept showing him when he was making those weird faces. So, so I don't know. He's not a character that stood out for me. So yeah, I don't have like much opinion about him. It's just like why do they keep showing his blockhead? That's what I can tell.
Blockhead. That's funny. That is funny. All right, so um, the investigation, right? Uh, which is a major part of the show. Before this show, once again, there you really didn't get those procedural FBI profiler type deals, right? This is one of the first. It might have been the first, and uh, which is it's very cool. You know, the whole looking under the nails and finding the R and all of that kind of stuff. Um, what do you think about the investigation aspect, Jen, of the show?
Okay, so this sort of gets into the meat of why I think this was successful. First of all, it remember that right around this time we're starting to see more and more procedural shows that are a little bit more in depth, right, about the actual investigation process. And I know we're going to talk about it next week, but part of what made the X-Files so interesting is we get this like sneak peek behind the scenes that we sort of hadn't had before where the FBI and even our local law enforcement were like kind of hidden a little bit. Not what we see or what we saw with like Hill Street Blues or some of the other cop shows, which sort of felt like, okay, yeah, there's camaraderie in the police force. We were actually seeing kind of like the actual investigation of stuff up close and in a minutia of detail that I don't feel like we had really seen before in a way that was linear, right? Because you might know that they did this or that they did that, but we were actually seeing this, like Kinte said, each episode is like a day, it was very linear in fashion, so you really got a good chance. And here you can see he's looking underneath her fingernails, and he finds the letter R, I think, on the paper that's underneath her fingernails. Like that kind of minutia of detail was different and compelling. And I think that that's one of the reasons that Twin Peaks became as successful as it was, because people liked that. Like, what does the FBI actually do? What makes them any better than anybody else?
Right,
I
right.
kind of liked that. I mean, obviously it's fiction, so take it with a grain of salt, but it was still cool. Like it had that I don't know, that aura of like, ooh, we get to see something nobody else does. This is neat.
Right. Yeah. No. No. That was really cool. Um, okay. So, what about you, Tori? What do you feel about the investigation aspects of the pilot?
Kind of, I'm gonna go along the same vein. Like, I like how the profiler. This is probably like right around when FBI agents really became profilers. Like this is whenever they started like having the criminal minds type investigations and stuff like that. And I think that the FBI agent did a really great job at uh, showing the procedures of everything. So he's very by the book, and he he's he's very detail oriented, like I said before. So the plot just kind of like feeds off that. Like it's like uh, the sheriff too. I mean, he brought it in too. Like yeah.
Yeah. No. I think it's. I think that this, this show. Oh, sorry, not on the screen. This show is definitely one of the forebears. I believe it probably was the first show to start doing that whole thing with the stuff. And then also, I gotta show this. Um, I don't know if does any of the ladies smoke.
Yes, I do.
No.
I did not realize this is a way to find out if your woman's cheating on you. Is to
Brandon cigarette.
God dang, this guy talk about abusive.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh. Yeah, he was crazy.
yes, he was like he was going through the butts in the ashtray looking for another Olaf. This guy was looking for another brand to see if there was a guy that, because he's a truck driver, so he's away. So
Right.
to see, and he was looking for.
Well, yeah, I mean, if he smokes Camels and he's seeing Marlboros in the ashtray, he knows somebody else been there.
Right. Which I was like, geez. And then she had a great comeback though. She goes, "Oh, I just pick up whatever."
Yeah. Like
What,
she's a
what,
collector.
yeah, she's like, "Oh, at the
I
diner, I
mean,
just pick up whatever is
I
there."
mean, equal opportunity smoker.
And then
Could
he
have been
said,
her mom.
and then
Right.
he,
That of
Or
course a lady wouldn't smoke. It had to be a guy.
and
well,
then he, and then
no,
he
it's
said,
like, but she could have just said, "Well, I just smoke OPs." OPs are other
other
people's.
people's.
So
Yeah.
But then he said, from now on, you're gonna only smoke one
Only.
brand.
But not
Jeez.
which one. He didn't say which one.
Yeah, I thought,
Uh,
yeah, and I mean, I don't want to ruin too much, but let's just say going forward, um, yeah, he doesn't become. He does. You're not gonna like him any much more going
he
forward.
doesn't endear himself to us at all.
No.
Yeah, yeah, which is funny. Now, another thing I have to say is when we have our indie radio summit, I want our table to be set
Yes.
up just like this.
I love it. I love the donut stack.
This, okay,
Who are they feeding?
I got-
Who are they
Goldies.
feeding?
I got to comment on this. Okay, first of all, this scene is so weirdly David Lynch. Like, I can just imagine that. I can imagine the set direction for this. I can also imagine picking up the piece of paper as the set decorator and going, "Oh, wait, what?" I mean, like, I can literally hear this in my head. But secondly, these two guys represent different spectrums of control, and this scene reminds us how absolutely in control of everything they are, down to this. Like, it's such a perfect kind of visual metaphor for the level of detail and control that they have. I loved this. I absolutely loved this. And also I am so all for the summit. Let's do it.
I don't see anything wrong with how the table's set. Looks fine.
But I want to know, who the hell are they feeding? Like,
right. And for those who are listening and they can't see the visual, they're in the conference table at the police station, and the receptionist has laid out donuts for all the police officers in Dale Cooper, and the way that she has it stacked is she has it. I mean, I've never seen this ever in real life. She has 2 donuts on top of each other of the same kind. And are they? I think they're all donuts.
Yeah,
the ones on the end, I'm not.
Oh, the very end. Oh, yeah.
No, those are cinnamon rolls.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. They just look big.
Yes, and it's like formed in 2 rows. Well, there's a 3rd row right there, and it is like the perfect meat. Like, you know what? From now on, I think that's how I'm gonna get a dozen, and that's how I'm gonna just lay them out like that. And they're gonna and some people will catch the reference, and other people will look at me like I'm strange. So even those who catch the reference might look at me like I'm strange.
So this was the precursor to the way that they set up the taco tables. It's just they happen to use donuts this time.
Right.
I know, but my OCD would be like, why is the food just out in the open? I would. I'm like,
that's true.
Why?
That is the drawback.
The reception
right by the telephone. Right by the telephone, like
No. Back then, that's what they did.
I know, it didn't matter.
Come on.
Yeah, they didn't know. They didn't know back then.
Yeah.
There were no way. There were in 1990. There was no germ. There was no germs.
No germs.
Right.
No germs in 90. What are you talking about?
No cross contamination or anything like that.
Right.
Now, you say the receptionist set that out?
Right.
Lucy,
Okay.
Lucy.
She's a little OCD because in the beginning, she said she was transferring the call. And it's going to the black phone next to the red chair, and the other one where I'm like,
not in the corner, but over here.
Yeah, I'm like,
I think it was to demonstrate that she talks way too much. Like,
yeah, because he even told her before he left, now this stays between us, or whatever he said. I said, oh, she must gossip to everybody.
Right.
But she was looking like, wait, I can't wait till he gets out the room so I can call somebody.
It's like, so when she was explaining about the phone, 3 words came to mind to me. It's like, shut up, Rose.
Yeah.
That was one of the cool moments in the sea of cool moments, and then also we have the jail scene where the dog chant.
Yeah, what the hell was that?
That was so weird.
Right. Yeah, great scene. I mean, it's so full of great stuff. And what was so great about it? It's so many characters. And in the first episode, they do a great job of establishing all of these characters in such in a cool way. And if knowing how it goes, they do a pretty good job of giving you what you're going to get and really establishing it. Now, there's so many more characters that we could talk about and focus on, but there's one character and I'm trying to pull up an image, and I think that was Lucy. I should have probably give you a quick piece of Lucy. Okay, let me. Come on. There we go.
Oh my gosh,
Oh my
eye
gosh.
patch lady with the drapes.
I should
That's
look at
all I
her.
call her.
First of all, this actress is awesome. And it's funny though, if you guys ever seen the movie The People Under the Stairs,
Mm,
Yes.
uh,
yeah.
Yes.
her and her husband on this play a couple in that movie. They play, the villains of the movie, and she's awesome. She's an awesome character. She's very weird, and there's a whole story too about how she got the eye patch. I won't ruin it for those who may want to continue watching, but yes, and she's obsessed with drapes, and she wants to make a set of drapes where there's no sound. And literally through the whole series, that's her main focus is trying to figure out,
Oh
you
my
know,
gosh.
and then her husband's having an affair with Peggy Lipton on the show, So let me see. Here we go. This is the husband right here. So, but yeah, they played a couple in the movie, which I think came out maybe 2 years after Twin Peaks. So they got cast together. But yeah. So before we go, I want to go to Jen. Was there any last things you want to talk about?
I think the only thing that I wanted to say in closing is the the Twin Peaks set up a very interesting age, or kicked off a very interesting age in television, where people suddenly saw the success of Twin Peaks and said, maybe there's something to this. And there was a lot of experimentation in television after this. Some of it succeeded and some of it didn't. But I really credit Twin Peaks with making studio execs see that there was an opportunity for something a little bit different than just mainstream network television. And I really, really give this show a lot of that credit. This pilot really drew in a lot of people, and it continues to
Oh,
hold up
you're underwater.
today. Oh, sorry.
Hmm.
It continues to hold up really well today.
Yes, yes, yes. And just as some background, Twin Peaks was huge. It
It
was
was.
it was very big. It got very high ratings. It actually started a national obsession about it was who killed Laura Palmer. At
Right.
the same time, there was the Who Shot Jr., but then it was who killed Laura Palmer, and people were obsessed with knowing the answer to it. And I will tell you, I'm going to actually tell you who killed Laura Palmer.
You better not.
I am. I'm going to tell you. It was the Wolfman. But no, no, I'm kidding.
It was the
But
log lady. It was
the
the
log
log
lady.
lady.
Yeah, we only
I
got a
I
little log
The
lady in
law.
it.
I saw her.
Right. No, but uh, so I'll tell you just a quick story about the show. So the intent by Mark Frost and David Lynch was that they would not really tell you who killed Laura Palmer. That in fact you wouldn't find out till maybe several seasons. They just wanted that to be the kind of overarching storyline, and then it would start to fade in the background as there's other plot lines that become more important. And what happened was ABC was getting like letters like, we want to know who killed Laura Palmer and all this stuff. So they were literally forced to answer the question earlier than they had intended. And what happened was once they answered that question, the show fell off of a cliff. And it was one of those it was one of those things where it became a cautionary tale. Uh, like I'll give you an example. Before Twin Peaks on ABC, there was a show called Moonlighting, and we have to do that pilot.
Oh yeah.
I like
And and the big thing on that show was David and Maddie. Everybody wanted them to get together, right? They held off, they held off, and they held off, and then they finally gave people what they asked for. Spoiler alert, David and Maddie hooked up, and the show was never the
Mm-hmm.
same after that, and people lost
Mhm.
interest. So that whole unrequited love thing they stretched out. You could tell like Frasier saw the David and Maddie thing and how they fell apart because they kept the Niles and what's the Daphne.
Daphne, yeah,
They kept them like it must have been like
for a long
13
time.
seasons before they hooked up. It was like
Yeah.
the show was damn near over
Over,
when they
yeah.
finally hooked up, right? So that was it was one of their big regrets that they revealed who the killer was earlier than they had intended to, and that kind of been like this thing that other creators remembered is like, okay, we're not going to be like Twin Peaks where they were forced to do it. So, but it's one of those things. But the show lasted, like I said, for 2 seasons, and then it went off the air. And then in 2017, they brought it back for a third season on Showtime, and that season was awesome. It was definitely not what I think some fans wanted because a lot of the show didn't even take place in Twin Peaks. Uh, And if you know David Lynch, you knew he wasn't going to just do what you want him to do, right? He's not that guy. And I thought what he gave us was amazing, even though there were some fans that were disappointed because they were looking for something. They were looking for more nostalgia, and he wasn't really giving nostalgia in it.
No.
But what he gave was brilliant. It was so brilliant. And but you know, but one thing that was interesting is, and I'm not spoiling it, uh, in the finale of Twin Peaks, this is the original finale in season 2. Uh, Dale Cooper sometimes gets visions of Laura Palmer talking to him in the red room, as they call it, and she says to him in something like, "In 25 years, something will be revealed to you," or something to that effect. I can't remember the exact quote. And when they got the go ahead to, by Showtime to bring back Twin Peaks for season 3, and they went back and they rewatched the whole show to get ready to do it. And when they did it, they realized that it was going to actually match what they put in the finale, that it was 25 years later, right? Which was and they because people were going like, wait a minute, did you guys plan it like this? And they were like, nah, it just happened like that. That something they said in the finale 25 years later, that 25 years later, that they said they weren't sitting there waiting for 25 years to do it. It just worked out that way. So I thought that was one of those cool little stories about the show. But
So
uh-huh.
did you know that I've heard from a number of different people, especially people that now sort of consider Twin Peaks to be like, a cult favorite, right?
Right.
Who watched Twin Peaks by getting it on DVD.
Right.
Did you know that the pilot wasn't actually a part of the DVD collection at first?
It wasn't, no, yeah, because it was
That's
something
so
separate.
weird.
No, because they had to sell it to like another company, and they had the rights, and yeah, it was like a whole rights thing. But yeah,
That's
yeah,
crazy. So a lot of people who watched Twin Peaks originally from just DVD didn't get to see the pilot, so they just started out with episode 1. And how much would you have missed if you didn't see the pilot first?
Yeah.
yeah,
Like a lot.
yeah. But you know what they probably should have done was they should have had a song like Gilligan's Island to
To tell you,
To
tell
recap.
you, right?
yeah,
So
so you don't miss anything.
then you don't even need to see the pilot.
We can title it "The Murder of Laura." We can just
Right.
go through, each individual person.
Yeah, but here's a tale of a girl who washed up on the shore. So, but yeah, things that came out of this show was a damn fine coffee. That was a line that Dale Cooper would say all the time, and he would always eat his pie. And you also had, David Lynch was a character on the show. He's an FBI agent,
Oh yeah, that's
and
right.
yeah, he was a character on the show, as well as you had the Red Room. You had the midget. I'm so sorry, I can't think of the character's name, who would always dance. He would always be dancing in the Red Room. The dwarf guy, and unfortunately, he fell out with David Lynch. I'm not going to go into that, because it's pretty jacked up, that whole saga. But that's why he wasn't in the revival, the dwarf guy. And then but it was so much goodness in this show, and I'm glad that we were able to cover it. So all right, so let's go to Tori. How can we get you in social media and all that great stuff?
You can get me every Friday night at 9 p.m. for my show, The Infectious Geek. It's about all things nerdy and pop culture. So please stay tuned for that. You can look it up on my Facebook or my YouTube channel. And I do a show every Thursday night with Jen called The Movie Potluck, where we review a movie and then we pick our sides, our food to bring along. And it's really fun. So look forward to seeing you viewers there.
All right, and that was Tori with the glory. Jen, who always wins. How can we get you?
And also, just so you know, this week we are doing Under the Sea. So
Under the Sea.
so if you have a favorite Under the Sea movie, I can almost guarantee that we will probably touch on it because this is one of my favorite genres. We're gonna do Kinte's favorite, The Shape of Water. So
Oh Jesus.
you can find me you can find me at my website moviesandmeals.com, and I promise I won't torment Kinte any longer.
Oh
Yeah,
Jesus.
you will.
On the air, I won't.
Oh, okay.
Renee, how can we get you in social media and all
You're
that?
my
Great
pencil writes because my pencil writes, editor, writer, all that. So yeah, but this was fun. Thank you again for having me.
Are you going to help me set up the donuts like that for our summit?
As long as they're covered, sure.
That's her addendum to it, right?
Yeah.
All right. Olaf, how can we get you in social media and all that good stuff?
Well, you can follow me on Facebook at Olaf Barbosa. Just don't follow too close because I do get nervous and I do have an itchy trigger finger.
All right. All right. And y'all need to help me find something that rhymes with Olaf.
Just ask him if he wants to build a snowman.
Oh yeah.
All right. No, wait. Olaf will help you get the mole off.
No.
I'm sorry.
No, we'll keep working on it.
I'm a good rhymer too. I'm a good
Yeah, it's like okay, it's like
We'll
that's
work
where yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah, you need to work on that a little bit.
Poor Olaf.
Olaf will
Good try. Good try, though.
tear your soul off. I don't know.
Oh gosh,
like,
it gets
how about-
worse and worse.
Or maybe you know what?
We're getting closer.
Yeah, we're gonna get it. We're gonna get it. And you can get me at Kente F on Twitter, Kente Ferguson at Instagram, and of course the website is theindyradio.com. That's the indyradio.com. Okay. Next week we will be joined by the Bundys. We're going to be doing Married with Children, as well as we'll be joined by Mulder and Scully doing the X-Files. So the truth is out there. All right. And trust no one.
Trust no one.
Trust no one.
Right. So you guys have a good one, and God bless.